Why did you bring your paralyzed kid here? The words, spoken in a calm, almost casual tone, sliced through the cozy Denver cafe like a knife through silk. Every conversation stopped. Every fork paused midair. Every eye in the room, which had already been sliding sideways, now turned to stare, openly and without shame. The CEO's fingers tightened on her 11-year-old son's wheelchair handles until her knuckles went bone white. Her blind date, a single dad named Rowan Garrison, who'd seemed so promising in his texts, had just revealed his true colors. Or had he? Because what happened next would challenge everything two broken families thought they knew about acceptance, about judgment, and about the courage it takes to show up as your whole self in a world that prefers you leave your complications at home. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, from small towns to big cities, connecting us all. The rain had just stopped falling, leaving the downtown Denver streets gleaming like polished obsidian under the streetlights. Estelle Hayes sat in her car, her expensive sedan feeling more like a cage, watching her son Arlo sleep peacefully in the passenger seat. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. She was already 15 minutes late, Mom. Are we going in? She could lie. It would be so easy. She could say she felt sick, a sudden migraine. She could drive home, text Rowan some plausible excuse about a work emergency. So sorry, a server's down. Can we reschedule? He would say, sure, of course, and they would never speak again. It would be easy. It would be safe. It would be what she always did. Through the cafe window, she could see him. Table in the back corner, just as he'd said. White button-down shirt, dark hair, checking his watch for the third time. He didn't look annoyed. He looked patient, which almost made it worse. Mom, can't we go in already? Arlo's voice was small, but it held a familiar impatience. He was tired of sitting in the car, tired of the build-up. That decided it. She couldn't teach her son to be brave if she was a coward. Yes, sweetheart. We're going in. The Willow Grove Cafe was exactly the kind of place where first dates happened. Soft jazz whispered from hidden speakers, exposed brick walls glowed warmly, and the air smelled of expensive coffee and fresh pastries. It was the kind of place where people presented their best, shiniest, most uncomplicated selves. It was not the kind of place where you brought your 11-year-old son in a wheelchair, because your specialized babysitter, the only one trained to handle Arlo's needs, had called out with the flu. The door chimed as they entered. The hostess's smile froze for just a fraction of a second when she saw the wheelchair. It was a look Estelle knew better than her own reflection. It was the O look. The look of logistical panic, of pity, of inconvenience. Professional training kicked in quickly, but Estelle still caught it. She always caught it. I'm meeting someone, Estelle said, her CEO voice emerging, steady, commanding, leaving no room for argument. He's already here. Rowan Garrison. Of course, Ms. Hayes. Right this way? The hostess's eyes darted around, looking for the most out-of-the-way spot. But Rowan was already at a table in the main area, and that's when the othering began. An older couple exchanged glances, the woman whispering something behind her hand. A woman on a laptop quickly looked back at her phone, as if the sight was too much to bear. Two teenagers in the corner actually pointed before their mother smacked their hands down, hissing, "Don't stare!" Arlo shrank in his chair, his shoulders hunching. He pulled the hood of his NASA sweatshirt up a little further. "Mom, they're looking." His voice was a flat, defeated whisper. "Let them look." "Baby," Estelle whispered back, her voice a fierce, low growl. "We're not here for them." Rowan stood up the moment he saw her. He was taller than she expected, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. He was handsome, but it was the exhaustion beneath his smile that struck her, a familiar exhaustion she saw in the mirror every morning. He walked toward them, his smile open and genuine, and that's when he said it. "Why did you bring your paralyzed kid here?" The cafe went silent. Not just quiet, actually silent. Someone dropped a spoon and it clattered against the hardwood floor like a gunshot. Estelle's face transformed. First, pure, unadulterated shock. Then, a wave of hurt so deep it stole her breath. And finally, a rage so pure and cold it could have melted steel. Her hand went protectively to Arlo's shoulder, her nails digging into her own palm. She was about to unleash the full withering power of a CEO who could make grown men cry in boardrooms. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet, but Rowan continued. His voice gentle, almost amused, as he crouched down, completely ignoring the stunned silence of the room. "Since you knew you were bringing him, you should have told me." Estelle braced for the rest. "I'm not ready for this. This is too much. I don't date moms with baggage. I would have brought Juniper." "Too," Rowan finished, his eyes fixed on Arlo. "She's 7, and she would have loved to meet him. No kid should have to sit through their parents' boring date feeling alone." Estelle blinked. "Once? Twice? What?" Rowan was now kneeling at Arlo's level, his gaze locked on the boy's NASA shirt. "Hey, buddy. I'm Rowan. What's your name?" "Arlo," the boy mumbled, still hiding. "That's a sick NASA shirt. You know about the James Webb Telescope?" Arlo's eyes, which had been downcast and full of shame, suddenly sparked. He peeked out from under his hood. "You know about it?" "Know about it? I helped design one of the cooling systems for the ground-based testing. Just a tiny part, but still." "No way." Arlo was fully upright now, his hood down, his face alive. "Mom, did you hear that? He worked on the web." Estelle was still processing, her heart doing a painful, hopeful flip-flop. Rowan stood back up. His eyes met hers, and there was something there she hadn't expected. Not pity, not judgment, understanding. "You see all these people," he said, his voice low, gesturing at the patrons who were now trying very hard to pretend they weren't listening. Staring uncomfortable glances, whispers. "Dates don't have to happen in places like this, Estelle." He sighed. "Our mutual friend said this was a good spot. Maybe for people whose biggest concern is whether to order red or white wine. But we're not those people, are we?" "I should go," Estelle said suddenly, the adrenaline rush fading, leaving her exhausted. This whiplash was too much. This was a mistake. "I'm sorry for wasting your time." 2 blocks over, Rowan said, as if she hadn't spoken. "There's a food truck festival at Civic Center Park. Live music, amazing tacos, and most importantly, wheelchair-accessible everything. The disability advocacy group holds events there specifically because nobody stares when a kid rolls by. It's just normal, but this is supposed to be our date," Estelle said, her death grip on Arlo's handles finally loosening. "It is our date," Rowan said, smiling. "We're just acknowledging that we're parents first. And honestly, I'd rather see who you really are, how you laugh. When you're not worried about strangers, then sit here making small talk while you stress about whether Arlo's okay." He looked at Arlo. "What do you think, buddy? Stuffy Cafe or Taco Festival?" "Tacos!" Arlo yelled, a little too loud, and he didn't even care. Rowan grinned at Estelle. "See, the man has spoken." 10 minutes later, they were walking through the park. Or rather, Rowan was walking, Estelle was pushing, and Arlo was providing enthusiastic commentary about everything from the smell of the Korean barbecue truck to the street musician playing a soulful guitar. The air was alive. Unlike the sterile, judgmental quiet of the cafe, the park was a riot of sound and life. Music drifted on the cool air, people laughed, and families of every shape and size were scattered on the grass. "Your colleague, Trevor," Estelle said, still feeling off balance. "He said you were different. I thought he meant you were just okay dating someone with kids." "Everyone says they're okay with kids," Rowan said, handing Arlo a taco. "Careful, buddy. These are messy. Your mom will kill me if you ruin that NASA shirt." "Mom won't care," Arlo said confidently, mouth full. "She only cares about my church clothes." Rowan raised an eyebrow at Estelle, who found herself blushing. "He's not wrong. They found a spot near the music stage where Arlo could see everything. Other families were scattered around, including 2 other kids in wheelchairs. One decorated with neon LED lights, the other covered in superhero stickers. "Cool wheels!" a girl about Arlo's age called out, rolling past with her family. Arlo sat up straighter. "Thanks, I like your lights." Estelle felt a tension she hadn't even realized she was carrying unclench in her chest. Normal. This was what normal felt like. "You asked about my experience," Rowan said, his voice softer now. He took a bite of his own taco. "My daughter Juniper. She used a wheelchair for 6 months when she was 4. Estelle's head snapped toward him. "What happened?" "Developmental dysplasia of the hip. Fancy words for her hip joint didn't form correctly. Nobody caught it until she started having severe pain. The surgery was successful, but recovery..." He shrugged, but the shadow in his eyes was deep. 6 months of wheels. 6 months of stairs. 6 months of people treating her like she was broken or contagious. How did she handle it? Better than I did, honestly. Kids adapt. It's the adults who make it complicated. I remember this one time at the grocery store. This woman, someone from my late wife's book club, actually told me I should keep her home until she's better. Because seeing her was upsetting for other children. Please tell me you said something horrible to her. I told her that her face was upsetting for other adults. But we still let her out in public. Estelle laughed. A real, genuine, surprised laugh that bubbled up from her chest. You did not. I absolutely did. Got banned from that Whole Foods for life. Worth it. The easy, shared laughter faded, leaving a comfortable quiet. Image 6. An intimate close-up of Estelle's face. Her eyes shining with unshed tears as she recounts Arlo's diagnosis. "Can I ask about Arlo?" he asked gently. "You don't have to answer." Estelle watched her son, who was listening intently to the guitarist. "Spinal tumor. He was 6. The words still felt like swallowing glass. We thought it was just back pain from a growth spurt. His pediatrician said he was fine. By the time they found it..." She trailed off, the memory of the cold MRI room and the doctor's grave face flooding back. The surgery saved his life. That's what matters. "That's not all that matters," Rowan said quietly. She looked at him sharply. "What?" "His life matters. Yes, absolutely. But so does his quality of life. So does his happiness. So does his mother's happiness." Rowan paused, his gaze steady. "When was the last time you did something just for you? Not for Arlo, not for work, just for Estelle." "I'm a single mom with a disabled child and a tech company to run," she said, the old bitterness creeping in. "There is no just for me." "There should be." "That's easy for you to say." "Juniper can walk now. You got your normal back." The words came out harsher than she intended. She immediately wanted to take them back, to apologize, but Rowan didn't flinch. "You're right," he said simply. "Juniper runs now. Faster than I can keep up with most days. But you know what she does every Saturday? Volunteers at adaptive sports programs, teaching kids in wheelchairs how to play basketball. Because she remembers. She remembers what it felt like when people saw the chair before they saw her." "I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did. And you're allowed to. You're allowed to be angry that Arlo won't have that same recovery story. You're allowed to grieve the life you thought he'd have." He waited until she looked at him. "But Estelle, you're also allowed to be happy. Both of you are." Before she could process that, Arlo wheeled himself back over, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom! Mom, that girl, Maya, the one with the lights, she invited me to her adaptive basketball team. They practice Wednesday nights. Can I go, please?" "We'll see, baby." It was her default answer. The one that meant I have to check the logistics, the cost, the impact on my work schedule. "We'll see means no," Arlo said to Rowan, his face falling, completely dejected. "Actually," Rowan said, pulling out his phone, "Juniper's team practices Wednesday nights too. Same gym, actually. Jefferson Community Center. She's been begging me to find her more teammates." "Really?" Arlo's entire face lit up. "Really? Really? But I should warn you, she's super competitive. Like, terrifyingly competitive. Last week she made a kid cry because he wasn't defending the key properly." "Rowan!" Estelle protested. "Okay, she didn't make him cry. But she did give him a very stern 5-minute talking to about zone defense." As the evening wore on, the walls Estelle had built brick by brick, disappointment by disappointment, began to crack. Rowan wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't performing the role of good guy who's okay with a disabled kid. He was just there, present, real. When Arlo got taco sauce all over his hands and face, Rowan produced a pack of wet wipes from his back pocket without a word. "Parent preparedness," he said with a shrug. "Juniper is a chaos agent." When the music got too loud and Arlo instinctively covered his ears, a lingering sensory sensitivity from his medical journey, Rowan suggested they move to a quieter spot by the fountain, without Estelle even having to ask. When a group of teenagers stared a little too long at Arlo's chair, Rowan didn't make a scene. He just positioned himself between them and Arlo, casually blocking their view while continuing his story about Juniper's latest school presentation on black holes. She told her entire class that if they didn't appreciate the magnitude of stellar collapse, they were living meaningless lives. Her teacher called me. Apparently she made 2 kids have existential crises. She sounds amazing, Estelle said, meaning it. She is. Also exhausting. Also probably going to grow up to be some kind of supervillain. But a thoughtful supervillain who makes sure all her evil layers are ADA compliant. The sun was setting now, painting the Denver sky in shades of impossible pink and orange. Arlo had found the group of kids his age and was engaged in an animated discussion about Minecraft. His wheelchair wasn't even part of the conversation. It was just the thing he sat in while he argued passionately about the best way to defeat the Ender Dragon. "Can I tell you something?" Rowan said suddenly. Estelle nodded, pulling her jacket tighter. "My wife, Sarah. She died 3 years ago. Autoimmune disease. It took 2 years from diagnosis to—" He stopped, cleared his throat, and started again. "During those 2 years, I watched our friend group shrink. Not because people were cruel. They just didn't know how to handle it. The messy reality of illness, the uncertainty, the fact that sometimes life doesn't follow the script. The invitations stop coming. The 'how are you' texts get fewer and farther between. I'm so sorry, Rowan. I'm not telling you for sympathy," he said, looking at her. "I'm telling you because I learned something. The people who stayed, the ones who showed up even when it was uncomfortable, who brought casseroles when we were too tired to cook, who took Juniper to the park when I couldn't leave the hospital. Those people taught me that love isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about showing up." He turned to look at her directly. "You showed up tonight. Your babysitter canceled, and you could have hidden. You could have canceled. You could have pretended for one evening that you were just a successful CEO looking for love. But you didn't. You showed up as yourself, as a mother first. You brought your son into a space where you knew he might not be welcomed. That takes courage." "Or stupidity," Estelle muttered. "No, courage. Most men don't see that as a selling point." "Most men," Rowan said, his voice firm, "are idiots." Arlo was getting tired now, his earlier excitement fading into sleepy contentment. He wheeled himself back over, yawning hugely. "Mom, I'm tired." "Okay, baby. Let's get you home." Rowan helped them navigate back to Estelle's car. The evening crowd had thinned and the air had turned cool. As Estelle lifted Arlo from his chair into the car, a practiced, fluid movement that spoke of years of experience. Rowan folded the wheelchair without being asked, fitting it into the trunk with surprising efficiency. "You've done that before?" she observed, her voice quiet. Juniper's chair was the same model. "Some things you don't forget." With Arlo settled in the back seat, already half asleep, Estelle turned to face Rowan. The silence was awkward, charged with unspoken questions. This wasn't what I expected," she said finally. "Disappointed?" "No. Surprised." She leaned against the car, suddenly feeling the weight of the last 3 years. "I've been on 12 first dates since Arlo's surgery. Do you know how many made it to a second date after they learned about him? I can guess. 0. And these were men who knew I had a son. They just didn't know about the complications. The moment they found out, there was always an excuse. It's too complicated. I'm not ready for that level of commitment. One guy actually said he didn't want to deal with the drama. His loss, Rowan said simply. That's what my mom says. Your mom's right. He paused, shifting his weight. Look, I know we just met, and I know this is probably too forward, but next Saturday. There's an adaptive sports day at Washington Park. Juniper will be there, terrorizing other children with her competitive spirit. Would you and Arlo like to join us? As a date? As whatever you want it to be, he said, smiling. A date, a play date for the kids. A chance to see if this, he jest between them, is something worth exploring. Through the car window, Arlo mumbled something in his sleep about the Ender Dragon. Estelle looked at her son, his face peaceful in the dim light. Then she looked back at Rowan, a man who saw the chair and the kid, and wasn't scared of either. He'll want to bring his NASA books to show Juniper, she said. She'll want to correct any scientific inaccuracies in them. He won't back down if he thinks he's right. Neither will she. They might argue. Probably, Estelle said, and a real smile touched her lips. Okay, we'll come. The next few days were a strange new territory. Estelle found herself distracted at work, staring out her high-rise office window, replaying the conversation in the park. On Wednesday night, she took Arlo to the basketball practice. He was so nervous he almost refused to get out of the car. But then Juniper spotted them from across the gym and came sprinting over. Are you Arlo? Dad said you like space. I like space too. Did you know that Jupiter has 79 moons? Actually, wait, it might be 95 now. They keep finding new ones. It's very annoying because I have to keep updating my presentation. Also, your wheelchair is super cool. Can I try it? She was a whirlwind of pigtails, energy, and non-stop questions. Juniper. Rowan jogged up behind her, slightly out of breath. We talked about this. You can't just ask to try someone's wheelchair? Why not? I let people try mine when I had one, remember? Tommy Peterson tried it and crashed into the principal. It was hilarious. That's different. How? Arlo was grinning wider than Estelle had seen in months. It's okay. She can try if she wants. But I get to time her on the court. Deal. Juniper stuck out her hand for a shake, her grip surprisingly firm. Then she looked up at her dad with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. I like him. Can we keep him? That's not how people work, sweetheart. It should be. We should have a people's store where you can pick the ones you like and take them home, but only if they want to come. Consent is important. Rowan looked at Estelle apologetically. She's been reading books about ethics. I thought it would be educational. I've created a monster. An ethical monster, Estelle said, laughing. The best kind. Saturday at Washington Park was even better. The adaptive sports section was bustling. There were kids of all abilities playing basketball, tennis, and even a modified version of soccer. What struck Estelle most wasn't the adaptations, but the joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. A woman in a racing wheelchair rolled up beside her. She looked to be in her 30s, with arms that could probably bench press Estelle. First-timer? Is it that obvious? Yes, my son Arlo, Estelle gestured toward where Arlo and Juniper were now engaged in what appeared to be an intense debate about the possibility of life on Europa. New to the chair or new to sports? Both, I guess. 3 years since his surgery, but we've never done anything like this. The woman smiled, a warm, genuine smile. I'm Coach Martinez. I run the basketball program. Your son's the one arguing with Juniper about space. That's him. Good luck. That girl once made me explain the entire theory of relativity because she didn't believe time could move at different speeds. I have a PhD in physics and she still stumped me. Estelle laughed. She's something special. So is her dad, Coach Martinez said, nodding toward where Rowan was helping set up cones for an obstacle course. He's been volunteering here since Juniper recovered. Never makes it about him, never tells the whole sob story unless asked. Just shows up, helps out, treats every kid like they matter. He seems too good to be true, Estelle admitted, the old suspicion creeping back. Oh, he has flaws, the coach said, grinning. He's terrible at basketball. Like, embarrassingly bad. Juniper banned him from playing because he was ruining the integrity of the game. And he makes the worst jokes. Dad jokes so bad they transcend being funny and become a form of performance art. As if on cue, Rowan appeared beside them. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Please no, Coach Martinez groaned, because they make up everything. He grinned proudly. Estelle surprised herself by laughing. That's terrible. The worst, he agreed cheerfully. I have hundreds more. Please don't encourage him, Coach Martinez begged. Last week, he did 10 minutes of wheelchair puns. We nearly had a mutiny. The day was perfect. Not because everything went smoothly. Juniper and Arlo did indeed get into a heated argument about Mars colonization, resulting in them dividing the court into pro-terraforming and anti-terraforming zones, but because it was real. During a lunch break, they sat on a blanket Rowan had thoughtfully brought. Juniper and Arlo were still debating, this time about whether hot dogs were sandwiches, while the adults watched with amusement. "They're perfect for each other," Estelle said. "Terrifyingly so," Rowan agreed. "They're either going to be best friends or academic rivals who push each other to Nobel Prizes. Why not both?" "Good point." He paused, watching Juniper demonstrate some point using French fries as visual aids. "Can I tell you something weird?" "Weirder than your Adam joke?" "Much weirder." He took a breath. "I wasn't nervous about today. Meeting you again, spending time together. That all felt right. But I was terrified about them meeting. Because if they didn't click," Estelle finished, "it wouldn't work. No matter how much we might like each other, I won't be the guy who makes Juniper accept someone who doesn't see her for who she is. And I know you feel the same about Arlo." Estelle watched her son, who was now teaching Juniper how to do a wheelie, while she took notes in a small notebook. "He hasn't been this happy in months." "Maybe longer." "Juniper either," Rowan said softly. "She's been asking when she'd have a friend who gets it. I think she meant someone who understands being different, being looked at, but also someone who sees beyond that." Later that afternoon, an incident occurred that would become family legend. A group of older kids, maybe 13 or 14, walked by, swaggering with teenage indifference. One of them, in a red hoodie, glanced at Arlo, who was practicing shots. "Why do they even bother?" he said, just loud enough to be heard. "It's not like the kid in the wheelchair can really play." Juniper heard it first. The transformation was instantaneous. She went from cheerful 7-year-old to tiny warrior goddess in about 0.3 seconds. "Excuse me?" she shouted, marching toward them with the confidence of someone who had never considered that being small might be a disadvantage. "What did you just say about my friend?" The teenagers looked startled. The one in the hoodie tried to backtrack. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant that people in wheelchairs can't play sports, which is stupid, because Arlo just scored 6 baskets in a row and you're just standing there with your mouth open like a fish." "Juniper." Rowan started to intervene, but Estelle put a hand on his arm. "Wait," she said softly. Arlo rolled up beside Juniper. "It's okay, Junie, they don't know better." "That's no excuse." Juniper was on a roll now. "Ignorance isn't an excuse for being mean. My dad says that if you don't know something, you ask questions. You don't make assumptions, and you especially don't say mean things about people who are working harder than you've ever worked in your life." One of the other teenagers pulled at the speaker's arm. "Dude, let's go." "She's like 7. 7 3/4. Juniper corrected. "And age doesn't matter when you're right." The teenagers retreated, thoroughly shamed by a girl who barely came up to their waists. Juniper watched them go, hands on her hips, then turned back to Arlo. "You okay?" "Yeah," Arlo said. And he was smiling. Really smiling. "Thanks, Junie. That's what friends do," she said matter-of-factly. "Also, I've been working on my intimidation tactics." "How'd I do?" "Terrifying," Arlo confirmed. "Absolutely terrifying." Rowan looked at Estelle. "I've created a monster." "The best kind of monster," Estelle said, echoing Juniper's earlier words. As the day wound down and they were packing up, Juniper tugged on Estelle's dress. "Miss Estelle?" "Just Estelle is fine, sweetheart." "Estelle." "Are you going to marry my dad?" "Juniper!" Rowan looked mortified. "What?" "It's a reasonable question. You like her, she likes you. Arlo and I are best friends now. It's logical." Estelle knelt down to Juniper's level. "Sometimes grown-up relationships are more complicated than that." "Why?" "See?" Juniper said to her dad. "She thinks I ask good questions." "You should definitely marry her." The months that followed weren't a fairy tale. They were better. They were real. There was the Tuesday when Arlo had a bad day in physical therapy, frustrated and in pain, and Estelle had to cancel their dinner plans. Rowan showed up anyway with Chinese takeout and Juniper, who promptly declared it a pajama dinner and that everyone had to eat in their comfiest clothes. Which is how Estelle found herself eating lo mein in her old college sweats, laughing. There was the Thursday when Juniper had a complete meltdown about her mom. It came out of nowhere, a storm of grief and anger, screaming that Rowan was trying to replace her, that Estelle wasn't her real mom. Estelle found them in the park later. Juniper was crying in Rowan's arms while he assured her, his own voice thick, that no one could ever replace her mom, that hearts could grow bigger to love more people without losing the love that was already there. Estelle sat quietly on a nearby bench, giving them space, her own heart aching, until Juniper walked over, red-faced and hiccuping, and climbed into her lap without a word. There was the Saturday when both kids got the flu at the same time. Rowan and Estelle tag-teamed, setting up a makeshift hospital ward in Estelle's living room. They watched approximately 17 hours of nature documentaries while the kids dozed. Rowan made his infamous sick day soup, which was just chicken noodle from a can with extra crackers, but which both kids declared magical. There was the Monday when a kid at school told Arlo that his mom must be desperate to date someone with a normal kid. Arlo came home in tears. Juniper, who got wind of it through the elementary school gossip network, marched into the older kids' classroom the next day during show and tell and gave an impromptu presentation on why my bonus brother is cooler than all of you combined, complete with a PowerPoint she'd made Rowan help her create. She got detention. Rowan admitted to Estelle later. Are you upset about it? I bought her ice cream on the way home. And then there were the beautiful, quiet moments that took their breath away. Like when Arlo designed a space station in his engineering class and included a special section for astronauts who used different mobility aids, because space should be for everyone. His teacher was so impressed she submitted it to a NASA student competition. Or the quiet Sunday morning when all four of them were having breakfast. Arlo, focused on his drawing, mumbled, "Can you pass the syrup, Dad?" He froze. The whole table froze. Rowan, his voice thick with emotion, quietly passed the bottle. "Syrup's right here, buddy." Later, Estelle found Rowan crying quietly on the back porch. "He called me Dad," he whispered. "Is that okay?" It's everything." 6 months into their relationship, they faced their first real crisis. Estelle's company, the one she had built from scratch, was offered a buyout. A massive one, the kind of money that changes lives. But it came with a catch. She would have to relocate to Silicon Valley for at least 2 years. The number was astronomical. Enough to ensure Arlo's medical care and college would never be a concern. She told Rowan at the park where they'd had their first real date. The food trucks were there again, but neither of them was eating. "It's an incredible opportunity, Estelle," he said carefully, his eyes on the fountain. "It is. You should take it." Her heart sank. "Should I?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I can't be the reason you don't. I won't be the guy who holds you back from something this big." "What if you're not holding me back?" she said, her voice shaking. "What if you're the reason I want to stay?" "Estelle, no. Listen to me," she said, taking his hand. "I've spent 3 years making every decision based on what's logical, what's best for the company, what's best for Arlo's future. But what about what's best for Arlo's present? What about what makes us happy right now? Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy really good medical care. Arlo has good medical care," she insisted. "What he didn't have was a family. Now he does. We both do." In the end, she negotiated. She was a CEO, after all. She brokered a partial buyout that let her maintain control of the Denver office while bringing in new investors. It was less money, but it was enough. More importantly, it was home. "You stayed," Rowan said when she told him, his voice full of a relief he'd tried to hide. "We stayed," she corrected. "Arlo and I, we chose to stay." "Why?" She smiled. "Because Juniper would hunt us down if we tried to leave." "She's very scary," he laughed, but then grew serious. "Really? Why?" "Because somewhere between you asking why I brought my paralyzed kid to a cafe, and Juniper defending him from bullies, and Arlo calling you Dad, we became a family. And you don't walk away from family." 1 year after that first date, they were back at Civic Center Park. Same food trucks. Same music stage. Rowan had been fidgety all day, and even the kids had noticed. "You're being weird," Juniper announced over tacos. "Weirder than usual, which is saying something. Thanks for the pep talk, sweetheart." "Is it because it's your anniversary?" Arlo asked. "Mom's been weird about it too. She changed outfits 4 times. "I did not," Estelle protested. "You did, I counted," Arlo said. The sun was setting, that same brilliant orange and pink. The guitarist was playing, the same one from a year ago. "Estelle," Rowan said suddenly, and something in his voice made everyone around them quiet down. "A year ago, I asked you the wrong question. Dad, are you doing what I think you're doing?" Juniper whispered, her eyes wide. "Shh," Arlo hissed. "This is important." Rowan dropped to one knee, pulling out a small, worn velvet box. "Oh my God," a stranger nearby said. "He's proposing. Everyone shut up," Juniper yelled. "My dad's trying to propose." The entire food truck area went silent. Someone started filming. "Estelle," Rowan continued, his voice shaking now. "You've taught me that love isn't about finding someone despite their complications. It's about finding someone whose complications fit with yours. Someone whose broken pieces align with your broken pieces to make something whole. Dad, you were supposed to mention the stars. It's more romantic," Juniper Stage whispered. "Juniper, I'm winging it!" he whispered back, then turned to Estelle. "Estelle Hayes, will you and Arlo make our family official? Will you marry us? Us?" Estelle laughed through her tears. "It's a package deal," Juniper said seriously. "You get both of us. Also, I've already designed Arlo's wheelchair decorations for the wedding. They're space-themed with working LED constellations. I've been learning Arduino programming specifically for this. Obviously," Arlo added. "And I've been working on my wheelie skills for the processional." "Processional," Juniper corrected. "So you have to say yes. We've put in a lot of work." Estelle looked at her son, his eyes shining with hope. At Juniper, who was practically vibrating with excitement. At Rowan, who saw all of her, CEO, mother, warrior, woman, and loved every part. "Yes," she said, her voice clear. "Yes to all of it. Yes to our complications. Yes to our beautiful, chaotic, perfect family." The park erupted. Strangers cheered. Someone bought them free tacos. And Juniper, true to form, launched into her prepared speech. "Attention, everyone! I would like to say some words about love and families and why my dad and Estelle are perfect for each other even though they're both kind of disasters in their own special ways." "Juniper!" Rowan protested, laughing as he slid the ring on Estelle's finger. "It's true, Dad. You once tried to make pancakes and set off 3 smoke alarms. Estelle, you thought a Phillips head was a hairstyle. But together you make one functioning adult, which is pretty good." The wedding was small, perfect, and absolutely them. They held it in the accessible garden at the Denver Botanic Gardens, with paths wide enough for wheelchairs and even a ramp to the gazebo. Arlo walked Estelle down the aisle. His wheelchair was decorated with NASA mission patches, white ribbons, and yes, the working LED constellation system Juniper had programmed. It displayed different star patterns as he moved, ending with a supernova burst when they reached the front. "Mom, you look beautiful," Arlo whispered. "So do you, my brave boy." "I'm not brave," he said thoughtfully. "I'm just me. But I guess sometimes being yourself is the bravest thing you can do." Juniper stood as the world's fiercest flower girl. She didn't just throw petals. She had choreographed a routine. Each petal represents a moment in their journey, she announced. "This one is for the bad cafe. This one is for when Arlo called him Dad. This one is for when I made those mean kids cry." When Rowan and Estelle exchanged vows, they included the kids. "Arlo," Rowan said, turning to him, "I promise to always see you as the brilliant, funny, extraordinary young man you are. I promise to support your dreams, whether that's becoming an astronaut or a Minecraft champion. And I promise to always, always be in your corner." "Juniper," Estelle said, kneeling to her level. "I promise to love your fierce heart and your brilliant mind. I promise to always listen to your ideas, even the ones that involve rocket-powered wheelchairs. I promise to be here for you, not as a replacement, but as bonus family who loves you exactly as you are." The reception was held at Civic Center Park, with food trucks catering. The first dance was supposed to be just Rowan and Estelle. But 30 seconds in, Juniper grabbed Arlo's hands and pulled him onto the floor, wheelchair and all. "We're a family," she announced. We danced together. What followed was the most chaotic, joyful first dance in wedding history. Arlo did wheelies, his LED constellations blazing. Juniper attempted to break dance. Rowan's dad moves reached new levels of embarrassing, and Estelle laughed so hard she nearly fell over, caught at the last second by her new husband. As the evening wound down, Rowan pulled Estelle close. The kids were with Coach Martinez, Arlo showing off his chair's light system while Juniper organized an impromptu science quiz. "Thank you," Rowan whispered. "For what?" "For bringing your paralyzed kid to that cafe. For being brave enough to show up as yourself. For letting us love you." "Thank you for seeing us," she whispered back. "Really seeing us?" "Always," he promised. "Dad." "Mom!" Juniper's voice rang out. "Arlo and I have prepared an interpretive dance about your love story. It involves ribbons and possibly mild pyrotechnics." "She found sparklers, didn't she?" Estelle sighed. "I'm afraid so," Rowan said. "Should we stop them?" "Probably." Neither of them moved. "They just watch their children." "Our kids," Estelle said, loving the sound of it. "Our beautifully complicated, brilliant, terrifying kids," Rowan agreed. "Our family. Sometimes love doesn't look like what you expected. Sometimes it looks like a man asking why you brought your paralyzed kid on a date. And meaning, why didn't you tell me so I could bring mine? Sometimes it looks like two broken families, marked by loss and judgment, fitting their jagged edges together to become one whole. Sometimes it looks like wheelchairs at weddings and arguments, about Mars and fierce little girls who defend their bonus brothers. The most profound love stories often begin not with perfect moments, but with imperfect ones that reveal perfect understanding. And sometimes, the question that seems like judgment is actually an invitation to finally be seen. If this story touched your heart, and if you believe that families are built by love, not by matching parts, please subscribe to hear more stories that celebrate the messy, complicated, wonderful reality of human connection. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where a situation you dreaded turned into the greatest blessing of your life? Let us know in the comments below, because everyone deserves to be loved for exactly who they are.